Today, we're going to talk about the color page. Have you ever navigated over to the color page and just been intimidated? I'm going to take you through a simple one node fix with some lift, gamma, gain, and a custom curve so you can navigate the color page without being afraid.
I'm scared, Pancho.
Here's our shot. We went from this to this on a single node using our primary color wheels and this custom curve. We have to talk about scopes. I don't want to have to put you down in the nitty gritty, but you got to know what you're changing in order to know if it's going to be right or not.
You must put those boys in the shed.
So we're going to use our scopes. I'm going to pop them out here. And right now we're looking at Y, R, G, B. Y is your luminance, just the white and black points. Red and green and blue channels. Those make up all your color variations. If your scope doesn't look like this, your settings might be on waveform. I keep mine on parade. And then on the 3-dot slider menu, I've chosen Y, RGB. Yours might be on RGB. Another point here is the settings for the timeline with the color management. Under my project settings, under color management, color science is DaVinci YRGB. I don't have it color managed. And then I'm outputting Rec 709 scene. It says scene because I'm on a Mac. Rec 709 is a color space you typically see on Netflix, YouTube, Amazon. So we're not outputting some kind of strange wide color space or something like that. We're just trying to make it look like what we are expecting. And if you've ever gone over to the color page and you don't know where to begin, you don't know what all these buttons do, there's a ton to learn, but let's just break down the simple primary color wheels down here in the bottom left. And I want to show you one thing over here in the custom curves. So to show you what we're doing with each of these parameters, I'm going to use this grayscale. Grayscale, starting at pure black, on our scope here, the very bottom point, which is down here on the bottom left, is absolute black and it's sitting at 0. In the upper right, is pure white, and that's sitting at 700. So this is the range we have to work with. Lift is our bottom end, the black point. If I start decreasing that, you can see we add more black to the low end. And we could see on our scope, we get this hard line. That means we're clipping it. It's so black, there's no detail here. You can reset all these parameters here with this little arrow, since we're in the lift range here, or you have a master reset right here. I'm going to go to the gain now and show you what that looks like. As we add gain, you can see we're getting brighter on our image and it's adding more. And you can see that's also clipping. So all this section is pure white. There's no data there. It's just bright white. Now there's no hard and fast rule when you're coloring about whether it needs to be absolute black or absolute white. It depends on how things are shot and what you're looking at. But I want you to see lift moves the low point and gain moves the high side, the white point. Gamma is everything in between. So if we notice, if we lower our black level here and we look, black point starts here with some clipping. I'll raise the gain. Now we have some clipping right here. But if I move gamma, those points stay fixed and it's everything in between that moves. So moving on to our shot, I'm going to reset this node here. Whenever you move to the color page, you'll see a single node. That means it's passing through color. But right now, there isn't anything in effect because we just reset this node. So right now, if we hover over it, it actually says no color correction. Now, all these tools are live if you use them. So if we grab our curve here and start manipulating it, it's going to make an adjustment. This node becomes active and it even tells us custom curves has been initiated. I'm going to reset that. I'm going to open my scopes up and now let's look at what's going on with the image versus what's on our scope. So then we know what we're adjusting and how it's affecting our image. If we look over our image here, the brightest point would be the water here or the skyline. And the darkest point is going to be behind the trees here in the canopy where the shade is. Now if you look at my scope, you can see these little bubbles floating whenever I hover over something. That's because I have a thing called Display Qualifier Focus enabled. If we go over to our scopes, or if your scopes are down here where they normally are, you can just click this little option menu and it says display qualifier focus right here. I'll pop it back out. It's right here. Now by default, when you hover over your image, it's already on qualifier. If it isn't, on the bottom left here, just below your preview window, is your overlay controls. If you click qualifier and then just hover over the image, you don't even have to click. If I go over to the shadow, it's letting me know where it is on the scope. If I go to the bright part of the water, it's letting me know where that lives on the scope. So to start on lift, we're going to go into this shadow area. So I'm going to zoom in here. Now here's what I wanted to show you if we go too far. If I take our lift and slide the wheel down, you can see it's reducing the black point, getting closer to baseline. If I go too far, you can see it's so dark we've lost any visible detail there, and you can't get that back. I'm going to hit reset here. Now with each of these lift, gamma, gain, you can see there's these little bar charts underneath with numbers on it. The wheel moves everything in conjunction, so Y, RGB. You could also click into each channel and move those if you want. Now, the luminance is just black and white. So you could think of it as looking like this, where the image has no color value. If I start moving all these colors around, you can see it move in our scope because that is active, but our visible image, I've taken all the color out, and now nothing's showing up. If I go back to our regular image, you can see wherever I push the color is what the image is going to look like. I'm going to reset this because I want to move everything in Ucision. Now if we had a problem, let's say the red channel was too high like this, and you brought it in. Using these scopes, we can see these aren't balanced anymore. The image shows red, and the black level is way too high. So I could come in here on the red channel and lower it down until we get a visible match right here. Now this one happens to be pretty balanced. So I'm going to use our slide wheel here and just touch it to the baseline. So you can see right here, we're just hitting the black point. If I zoom in on the shade area now, you can see that's down on the black. We might be able to go a little bit lower, but now we have a nice starting point for the darkest point of our image. Now we're going to work on the gain. Same thing, we have a color wheel, so this is all the top end, not the black level, but the top peak. So I'm going to reset that. We could move the individual channels, we could move just the black and white portion, or we can use our slider wheel to move everything. Now same thing with the black. If we move in here and we look at the wave right here, for instance, it's one of the brighter spots of our image. If I crank up the gain, you can see we lose all the detail here, and you can't even tell that it's a wave any longer. We could also see our scope is peaking out, letting us know you've exceeded the visible limit. So I'm going to bring this back down to default, and I'm going to raise it up just a little bit here, just to give it a little bit of brightness, but I don't want to ruin any of the detail here because we can't gain that back. So now we've fixed where the black point lives, we've fixed where our white peak lives. Now we can adjust the middle, which is the gamma. Now if we wanted to move the gamma to a certain color, let's say we wanted it to be warmer, we could grab our wheel in the middle where the dot is and move it towards yellow. We could move it towards blue if we wanted it cooler looking. So this will move your RGB values. If you notice when I move this around, only RGB numbers are changing down here, but not the luminance, because this is dealing with color only, not black and white luminance. What I'm going to do with this gamma though is very simple. Slide it down to give us a little more depth. All I'm doing is lowering the range of the gamma closer to black. This is giving us a little less of this washed out look like we started with, and now we have a little bit more depth and contrast. So all I did here was lift, gamma, and gain. I haven't touched offset. Offset will take your lift, gamma, gain and move everything together. Watch if I raise this slider, and you'll notice this doesn't have a luminance channel. This is just RGB. As I push it up, you can see our black levels raising off baseline and getting pushed up brighter and brighter. And you can see our peak is now exceeding because we've grabbed everything, but it left everything intact as far as our balance goes between lift, gamma, and gain. So you could consider this as a global sort of adjustment. I'm going to reset it, You can also use offset once again if one of your channels were off, or if you wanted to slide it over to give it like more of a warm look. So these don't always have to be balanced. It's depending on what you're looking at and making sure you're not doing any damage. I wanted to cover offset so you weren't wondering what's going on here. So that's lift, gamma, gain. We do have tools above and below. We have temp, tint, contrast, pivot, some tools down here like color boost and shadows. You can manipulate all these by clicking in the box and dragging your mouse or your trackpad left or right. Now, if you don't like the result you're getting and you don't want to remember the number value, just double click the parameters word. So here I'm going to click temp, double click it, and it jumps right back to its default. Same thing with contrast here. If we were to move that around, double click it, and we go back to default. Now for simplicity's sake, we're still in the primary color wheels. I've adjusted our lift, gamma, and gain. I've left my offset alone, and I haven't touched any of these other parameters. Now I want to move to the center of the screen here. By default, this is called curves. And it sits on curves, and the very first option here is just called custom. Now this is similar to what we were looking at on the grayscale, where this anchor point in the upper right is your bright point. If I grab that and lower it, you can see our peak is now lowering. But so is the rest of our image based on where this line sits. Same thing with this on the bottom left is our black level. So if I raise that, it's starting to lift everything. Now we could grab it in the middle and kind of pull that down. Now our black level is raised, but our middle's back down. So let me show you how to use this. To get rid of a dot, right click it. And I'm going to lower this back down to where it was. In fact, there's a reset right here as well. Now, what a lot of people like to do, and what our little graphic is indicating, they do what's called an S-curve. So they leave their black and their white points alone, and we can use our graph here, right here showing we've got some data here. Not so much up here in the high end, but right here. I'm going to make a point right there. Same thing with the low end. I'm going to keep it right about there. So we've added 2 points. Now, if I add yet another point, the 2 that I added act as safe zones. So now if I raise and lower this in the middle, you can see we're getting a nice gentle slope below and above those 2 anchor points that I created. Now if you start moving it around and you're unsure where default is, you could right click and delete your point, or if you have a point and it's raised, hit Option and start dragging the point. When you do that, this little line will appear in the center, and as you drag toward it, it'll snap down to its default value. Now here's what I mean, where if you were to use color boost or saturation, you might change the image globally. This will let you get into the details a little more with this custom curve. So down here's our black point, the darkest part of our image on our scope, and up here's our peak, and we have gamma in the middle. Now, rather than adjusting the entire gamma range, which would be like 600 and above 100, we can actually get in and adjust these parts that are a little denser on our waveform. So if I grab right here, based on where our graph is, and start moving that, do you see how when I go up and down, we're just manipulating that part of the image, changing the exposure level. If I drop that down, you can see more clouds in the background, the reflection of the water starting to change, the tone of the sand. If we move down here, where the lower end is, kind of the upper middle part, we're affecting the shading in the trees and the mountains. So almost like an exposure. Now with a few little small tweaks here, we can really change what our image looks like as far as contrast goes, exposure, and just tighten it up quite a bit. A little goes a long way here, and you could definitely do some damage if you're not careful. If I raise this up, for instance, you can see now the mountains up here are getting all blown out right here, weird gray tones, her bathing suit, all the treetops here. It almost looks AI or fake because we overexpose this range. So pay attention, make sure you're not doing any damage. And same thing, you could overexpose it, you could underexpose it. So a little goes a long way. Pay attention to your scope. And one other caveat, this won't necessarily say you've gone too far. If I grab this and lift it, we can now see a hard line here telling us all that data is just crushed and clipped. And we could see that too. but it's not the same as when you exceed the gain or the black level. So just keep that in mind. So now we've done all this on one single node where we went from here to here. One singular node, lift, gamma, gain, didn't touch offset, and adjusted our contrast curve or our custom curve just a bit. That's it for this tutorial. There's a billion things we can get into, stacking nodes, power windows, all kinds of things. This is just a simple one node, lift, gamma, gain, and a custom curve, so at least now you're acquainted with the color page and you won't be so intimidated and not know where to start. So if you found this helpful, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you guys on the next one.